Night fell over the city, bringing a cold breeze that carried dry leaves through the empty streets. Luke walked hurriedly, not just to escape the cold but also because of his eagerness to meet Sofia. They had been together for a few months, and every second by her side felt like living in a dream. However, something had changed in recent days. Sofia seemed distant, and her once vivid eyes now carried a strange, almost supernatural aura. That night, she invited him to her house. When he arrived, he was surprised to find an old mansion on the outskirts of the city. Luke felt a chill down his spine as he approached the house. He wondered if this was really her home, but he brushed it off as nerves. Upon entering, he was greeted by silence, broken only by the sound of his footsteps on the wooden floor. Sofia was waiting for him in the dining room, smiling. The table was set with candles, but there was no food, only a bottle of wine. "Luke," she said in a hypnotic voice, "have you ever wondered what it means to live forever?" The question hung in the air. Luke didn't understand what she meant, but something warned him. Danger was imminent. Luke was a young professor, known for his passion for Gothic literature and romance. He had always been drawn to the dark and mysterious, but he never imagined he would become part of a sinister narrative. Sofia, his girlfriend, had been an enigma from the moment they met. Beautiful, with deep eyes, her calm and mysterious demeanor had drawn him in, but now he wasn't sure who she really was. Sofia's mansion was like her, imposing, charming, and full of mysteries. The walls were adorned with portraits of strange people who seemed to watch him. The elegant furniture looked ancient, and the air was heavy with the scent of wilted flowers. Everything there felt disconnected, out of sync with the present. As he watched Sofia pour the wine, he noticed something. She didn't touch the drink. She also seemed different from the Sofia he knew. He tried to ignore it, but his intuition screamed at him to leave. "Sofia," he began hesitantly, "is everything okay?" She looked at him, and for a brief moment, he saw something in her eyes, a coldness as if a mask had slipped. But then she smiled and calmly said, "I'm perfectly fine, darling. In fact, I'm better than ever. And you will be too soon." Luke didn't know how to respond. He wanted to leave but couldn't quite grasp what was wrong. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, and he felt something was about to happen. What he didn't know was that what was coming would be far darker than any story he had ever read. Luke tried to mask his discomfort with a sip of wine, but the taste was strange and metallic. He looked at Sofia, who was now staring at him. Her eyes glowed like fire in the dark. "Sofia, what's going on? Why are you looking at me like that?" She smiled, but this time there was no sweetness in her expression. He saw sharp white teeth. Luke recoiled, but the chair he was sitting in seemed glued to the floor. "You've always been so curious," she said, her voice now carrying a hypnotic melody. "But some truths are hard to accept. Are you ready to learn what I really am?" His heart raced and his hands grew clammy. "What do you mean?" Sofia stood up and approached him. Luke noticed she cast no shadow. Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt drawn into her gaze. "I am far more than you imagine," she whispered, her voice now a distant echo. "And you, my dear, are destined to join me. Forever." Luke tried to stand, but his legs were locked in place. He felt a surge of panic as Sofia bared her sharp teeth again. She was closing in, her smile now pure malice. This can't be real. But it was. Sofia was inches away, and he could feel the coldness of her body. She reached out, touching his face. "You don't need to be afraid," she said. "Soon you'll understand. Soon you'll be like me." Luke felt a sharp pain in his neck, followed by a warmth spreading through his body. He tried to scream, but his voice was trapped. His vision began to darken, and he felt himself falling into an abyss. When Luke regained consciousness, he was lying on a couch in the candlelit room, shadows dancing on the walls. He felt a pain in his neck and touched the spot, finding 2 small cuts still damp with blood. The memory of what had happened flooded back like a nightmare, and he sat up abruptly, his heart racing. Sofia was sitting nearby, watching him with a look that mixed concern and ambition. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "What did you do to me?" he replied, his voice trembling with anger and fear. She sighed. "I gave you a gift few have the chance to receive. Eternal life." Luke felt nauseous. "I don't want this. I don't want to be like you." She stood and knelt beside the couch. Her eyes glowed with an intensity he had never seen before. "You don't understand now, but you will. I love you." I can't lose you to time. He looked at her, confused and terrified. What do you mean? I've lived for centuries, Luke. And in all those years I've never met anyone like you. I won't let you grow old and die like everyone else I've known. A chill ran through Luke's body. He was trapped in a reality he couldn't accept but couldn't deny either. Sofia was a vampire and she wanted to turn him into one too. The idea was terrifying, unnatural, but deep down he felt a connection to her that he couldn't explain. Why didn't you tell me before? He asked, his voice softer now. Because I knew you wouldn't understand. You'd think I was crazy, she replied, her eyes filled with sadness. But now you know the truth. And you have a choice to make. Luke stared at her incredulously. What choice? You can join me, live forever by my side. Or you can leave now and never see me again. But know this. If you choose to leave, you'll never be able to forget what you've seen here. Luke felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. He loved Sofia, but what she was offering was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Fear of the unknown battled his desire to stay with her, and he didn't know what to do. Luke looked at Sofia, his thoughts racing. His heart felt heavy, torn between his love for her and the horror of what she had become. The mansion seemed quieter than before, as if holding its breath, waiting for his decision. Sofia, I love you, but this is too much for me. I don't want to live forever. I don't want to be a creature of the night. She looked at him, her eyes glowing with sadness. I understand, she whispered. But know that if you leave, you can never return. Please think a little longer. Luke knew Sofia was no longer the woman he had fallen for, but he could see her pain. He stood up, looking at her with fear and compassion. I don't want to hurt you, but I can't stay. I can't become what you are. She closed her eyes as if suppressing an inner pain. When she opened them again, there was determination in her gaze. Then you leave me no choice. Before Luke could react, Sofia moved with supernatural speed, gripping his shoulders. He tried to break free, but her strength was unmatched. She stared into his eyes, and he felt a wave of calm wash over him, as if he were being hypnotized. I won't hurt you, she whispered, her voice now a distant echo. But I can't let you go either. You're mine. And I am yours. Luke felt a sharp pain in his neck again, but this time the sensation was different. It was as if something inside him was changing, transforming. He tried to fight, but his strength was fading fast. When Sofia finally released him, he fell to his knees, feeling utterly weak. He looked up at her, tears in his eyes. What have you done to me? I gave you a chance, she replied, her voice filled with infinite sadness. A chance to be with me forever. Now you just need to rest. When you wake up, everything will be different. Luke tried to speak, but no words came out. He felt his consciousness slipping away as if falling into a deep sleep. The last thing he saw was Sofia's face, her eyes glowing with a mix of love and pain. Moonlight cast ghostly shadows on the dark wooden floor. Luke stood in the center of the room, his heart racing, his hands trembling. He looked at Sofia, who now seemed more like a figure from a nightmare than the woman he loved. Her eyes glowed with a supernatural light, and her pale skin reflected the coldness of death. Luke, she called, her voice soft but laden with sadness. You don't need to be afraid. I'm still the same person. He shook his head, his thoughts in turmoil. The same person? Sofia, you turned me into a monster. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this. I had no choice, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. I couldn't lose you. I can't live without you. Luke felt a lump in his throat. He still loved her, but the horror of what she had done consumed him. You took away my humanity. You condemned me to a life of darkness. How can I forgive that? She reached out, but he pushed her hand away. I'm not yours anymore. I'm not even myself. Sofia looked at him, her eyes a mix of love and despair. Luke, you don't understand. This curse, it's not just about immortality. It's a prison. A torture. I've lived for centuries watching everyone I love die while I remain here, trapped in this endless existence. He stared at her, confused. What are you saying? I didn't want this for you, she admitted, her voice breaking. But I couldn't let you go either. I'm selfish, Luke. I know that. But I can't live without you. Luke felt his heart grow heavy. He understood her pain, but he also knew he couldn't continue like this. What if there was a way to end this? He asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. She looked at him, her eyes filled with fear. What do you mean? I've read about it, he continued, his thoughts racing. About how to break the curse. How to free someone like you? Luke felt a fierce determination grow within him. He knew what he had to do, even if it destroyed him inside. He turned and walked to the fireplace, where a wooden stake rested among the fire tools. Sofia, he called, his voice firm but filled with pain. I love you. But I can't let you continue like this. I can't let you suffer. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. He approached her, the stake firmly in his hands. I don't want to do this, he admitted, his voice trembling. But I don't see any other way. I can't let you remain in this prison. She tried to back away, but he held her by the shoulders. I love you, Sofia, he whispered, tears falling. And that's why I have to do this. With a swift motion, he plunged the stake into her chest. Sofia let out a cry of pain. She looked at him, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, her voice weak but filled with peace. I'm finally free. Luke held her as she fell to the ground, her body disintegrating into a mist of dust and light. He wept, feeling the weight of his decision. He knew he had freed his beloved, but that didn't make the pain any easier to bear. When the mist cleared, Luke stood alone in the silent mansion. He looked at his hands, now pale and cold, and felt the hunger growing within him. The curse was still there, but he knew he had done what was necessary. He had freed Sofia, but now he was trapped in the same prison she had endured. He looked at the moonlight, feeling a mix of pain and acceptance. And perhaps one day he too would find the peace that Sofia had found.